everyone. Good evening, everyone. It could be good morning, it could be good evening, it could be good afternoon, depending on where you are at the moment. We are blessed tonight, but at this moment, we have so many people from different parts of the world joining this Zoom tonight because it's something that I would say everybody is waiting for. We are very much privileged to have Dr. Joe all the way from Texas, right?
Finally, his creation is done. This is probably his best ever creation that would change humankind's health and the way people see supplements. I'll let him explain this to you guys. The man himself, Dr. Joe Guanera. Please, everybody, guys, please welcome Dr. Joe, all the way from Texas, United States of America.
Awesome. Thank you,
Dr. Joe,
for that kind introduction. It's so exciting to be here and to be able to share some information. My morning, I think it's most everyone's evening, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Thank you for making time to be here. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Are we ready to start the slides, Raimi?
Yes, we are ready to go. So you can actually share your screen and share the slides as you go along explaining about Joegenics.
We will do that. Very excited to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about kind of the why this came about. My entire life, I have been very interested in my own personal health, and that started probably when I was 10 years old and first began to get involved in athletics. And that led to me getting to college. I studied and did research in the field of engineering in my first undergraduate work as a young man. Very fascinated about anything that had to do with science. Then I had the opportunity to get a medical education, spent another 5 years in school getting a medical education so that I could begin to apply some of the fascinating passions that I had for health. And we began back in the 1970s introducing natural products into the human system and evaluating how they impacted human health. And as the years progressed in the 70s and in the 80s, we began to see some very interesting things. People that had been to multiple doctors with medical challenges that were not responding to traditional medical care, when we introduced natural products, either from food or from spices or from herbs, we began to see amazing changes in the human physiology. And it was not really understood at that time. We knew it was working. We had the scientific clinical data that it was working, but we didn't have the real understanding of how this is working. And so we still continue using clinically a lot of herbs and a lot of different things that were frankly quackery type medicine here in the Western world. In your world, in Southeast Asia, there's a tradition of thousands of years of usage, and we were studying and looking at traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine from India, and all types of strategies to help the patient in the clinic. And what we saw was amazing. And then something very significant happened in around the year 1988. There was a research project, about $65 million at that time, spent at the National Institute of Health, and they studied a plant called broccoli. And they began to take broccoli apart and look at some of the micronutrient structures in there, and they found a compound called sulforaphane, and they began to research and found that this molecule was one of the most powerful anti-cancer compounds that they had seen at that time. And that started a revolution in a field called phytochemistry, looking at not only the vitamins and the minerals in the plants, but now these phytochemicals. And it started with one. Today, and we'll talk about it more in detail later, but now over tens of thousands of these phytochemicals have been developed. Well, that set me on a path of research. Again, I'd already been using these plant compounds, and now phytochemicals became kind of a, yes, this is probably why things are happening. And for the next 10 years, looking at all the patients and looking at all the responses that we saw, it still didn't answer. How is this working? And maybe 10 years ago, we knew things were progressing from a technological standpoint, and DNA had certainly been discovered, and we began to see that there's something even over the DNA in our cells that's controlling things. And as a wellness practitioner, way back in the 80s, I began to promote the idea that if you get your lifestyle and your diet and things better, your life and your ability to age slower will be impacted. But we didn't know how. But now we know that this overriding system of our DNA, and it's called epigenetics, is one of the answers. So what we've developed is a product based on that latest scientific understanding. So I want to kind of share with you a little bit of the science. It's very detailed. It's very, very complex, but we're going to try to make it fairly simple. So the talk today is about epigenetics, the science of gene expression. And I'll just put a picture up here and kind of describe a little bit about what we're talking about. If we go and look at the human body, it's made up of cells. And our body, if we begin to break it down, we've got a human and we've got systems in the body. And in basic biology, there's 10 to 12 body systems made up of organ systems like the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the nervous system that controls everything in the body. And that's what everybody knows. But here's the amazing thing. Those broad systems are made up of cells and tissues. And the human body is made up of literally trillions of cells. And each one of those cells contains chromosomes, which is made up of DNA. And that is, according to science, the blueprints that creates everything about us. This DNA molecule is a long molecule, and it's included in each and every one of those trillions of cells. And we've known this from 100 years ago in the studies, the early studies of genetics, that certain things control eye color, skin color, the hair, everything about us. The early studies was the genetics control that, and then they discovered, yes, there is a DNA molecule that contains billions of combinations that make us uniquely who we are. And then again, about 10 years ago, they began to understand that there are overlying systems that control how that gene or the DNA is expressed. And on this DNA molecule, there are segments of what we think now are about 25,000 genes that control everything in our existence. And we now know that things like our food intake, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are critically important for controlling that DNA. And we've known that for a long time. There's now whole fields of science called glycomics, metabolomics, and lipidomics. Those are fields of study of just those molecules and how they impact that DNA. And a lot of the drugs that are made affect these areas. Well, now what we know is there's another overlying system. And this is what has been exciting for me, because it validates and gives an understanding of how our lifestyle and our diet affects this DNA and gives us the capabilities of controlling our health future. And that's very, very important. This science of epigenetics and gene expression, every single day there are dozens and hundreds of new information studies published in the scientific literature. So this is a vast, fast evolving situation. So the science of gene expression has now evolved, and here's what's exciting for me. In the last decade, it's validated everything that from a wellness standpoint, not a pharmaceutical medicine standpoint, but from a wellness standpoint, how we as individuals can have control of our health. And that is how the lifestyle factors and environmental factors affect gene expression. So we have our DNA, and we know there are three very big important things: histone modification, DNA methylation, and microRNAs. These are some scientific studied areas, thousands of research projects in each one of these into how gene expression is manifest. But here's the exciting news: nutrition, age, gender, physical activity, environment, where you live, and the environmental stresses that we have, any diseases that you're exposed to, ethnicity, lifestyle, and stress. Those are all factors that control the DNA in a very profound way. And I was looking at the scientific literature yesterday, and there are literally now thousands of research projects on these external factors, particularly the nutritional factors that modulate gene expression and gives us the ability to not only control how our bodies are affected by challenges like disease, but also how we can control the gene to express so we don't have as much disease, so that we can eliminate toxic buildup, so that we can age gracefully over a long period of time. And one of the statements I always make is the goal is to live a long life at a high level of health and then die at a very old age quickly. And that's a model that is paramount in the wellness concept. So, looking at these factors, two are extremely powerful. All of them affect the DNA expression, but nutrition is the overriding most powerful because that's something we do multiple times a day that has effect on that gene expression. And then number two is physical activity. I can't emphasize the power of combining physical activity correctly and nutrition to control gene expression and to have power over our health. So these are critical issues, and I'll be talking about these in detail over the next number of years because the research is so compelling of how much power that it gives us. And that's why we created Joegenics, to incorporate the power of nutrition coupled with these other factors so that we can have complete control over our health. So what does support in the control of epigenetics? And like I said, phytochemicals, when they were discovered in 1988, those were the first early studies. Today, in the scientific literature, over 500,000 scientific studies from all parts of the world have been done on these phytochemicals, and they're broken down into categories, but the most prominent, most studied are the polyphenols and the flavonoid and all of the things that they affect and how they control gene expression. So these phytochemicals, we knew if we could get those in a nutritional supplement correctly, the right quality and the right quantity delivered into the human system, it would give us the maximum potential for controlling our health. So these phytochemicals and everything, the research about them has now been incorporated after years and years into our latest creation, which is Joegenics. So let's talk about why we needed to create a product like Joegenics. These phytochemicals are very delicate. If you cook your food, if the food is grown improperly, if it's picked before it's ripened, all of those factors decrease the amount of phytochemicals going into the human body. So here's what's been discovered. We should be eating 5 colors of plant-based vegetables 13 times a day, according to the United States government. And it says here that 80% of Americans, because we eat a Western-based diet, don't get enough color, and therefore they're not getting the benefit of these thousands of phytochemicals that are regulators of our health. And so when you look at the red ones, 74% are not getting enough. 76% of the purple varieties of plants and vegetables. The green benefits, 69% are not getting enough. In my country, 83% on the white vegetables, and yellow and orange, 80%. So we know in America, our health, as much money as we spend on healthcare, is still not in the top 25 in the world. And the reason is we've westernized and technologically changed our diets and our agriculture, and we've lost these precious phytochemicals in our diet. And so what we needed is a strategy like we were using in the clinic for decades of getting these phytochemicals back in the mass population of people so that they could have better health. So we created a global solution to that global problem, and we call that Joegenics. And what is Joegenics? Well, it's a result of decades of scientific research, not only myself, but thousands and thousands and thousands of research centers literally around the world. And we've collaborated. I've had the great fortune to work with some of the top scientists in the world in the field of phytochemical and epigenetic research and how these molecules affect our health. To give you an example, there is a single ingredient in Joegenics that's got over 10,000 scientific studies. A lot of those were done here in the United States, in cancer research centers. Lots of those were done in India, because this happens to be an ingredient in the Indian diet that has been found to be unbelievable if you can get it just right and put into the human body. So Joegenics is a combination of 20 plus scientifically studied ingredients so that we can get not only polyphenols, but polyphenols from different plant species because they are all different and interact with our genetics in a different way. And this gives us the ability to put a product in all different races, all different cultures, all different age groups, and get the maximum amount of benefits because we're getting ingredients from multiple plant species, and each one of the ingredients works on different body systems. So it's just an incredible opportunity to provide the body with thousands and thousands of phytochemicals from different plant species. And this is what science is saying is the future of medicine, returning back to what's been used for thousands of years, which is plant-based, phytochemical, and zoochemical species to impact our health. So what are the benefits? Because we want to really talk about benefits of a product. Well, number one, I have found clinically, if a product is not easy and it's not enjoyable, the consumer will not use it for a long time. So we've always tried to create products with the patient in mind or with the consumer in mind so that they can have an enjoyable experience and a easy input to the body, because if not, they will not use the product long term. And it's important because these phytochemicals have a small half-life, anywhere from 2 hours up to 10 to 12 hours in the human system, and their work is done and they need to be reintroduced. So that's why we eat multiple times a day. The great news is Joegenics is designed to work on multiple body systems, multiple signaling systems into our DNA so that the DNA can express itself for maximum human potential. And it supports not only hundreds, but now we know thousands of internal cellular systems, not just the 12 organ systems, but each internal system within those systems themselves. So it gives us maximum potential for healing. It's synergistic with a lot of other technologies, especially some technologies that have already been developed with ThanksI, the proteoglycan technology. It's synergistic with the the foods and the beverages that you eat. So it's going to work hand in hand with all of the health and wellness strategies that we want to incorporate. It works extremely well in the physical activity model of wellness. And I can tell you, after working with thousands of athletes, both high school, collegiate, Olympic, and professional, that phytochemicals are a secret sauce in their performance and especially in their recovery ability. So that is one of the huge benefits of Joegenics. The nervous system is critically important, and brain function controls just about everything in our bodies. So Joegenics is really targeted into brain function and the phytochemistry that affects brain function, so that we have better memory, better attention, less distraction, better focus in our mind and in our function. And things that aren't known real well, but this is a work called stress that affects the human body, and that stress can be environmental, can be in physical, or it can be emotional. And I've been doing work with stress since the 1970s in the field of psychology, how stress affects the body, how it affects our attitudes, and how it affects our desire and our will. And those things are critically important. And Joegenics has been designed to support all of those systems in the human body. Again, more benefits. What does it do in simplistic terms? Because we could talk for days in a scientific way about how it works, but here's the simplistic way that Joegenics provides raw materials in the form of phytochemicals to the body, so the body can do what its naturally, inherently, God-given ability to do, and that is to restore itself from health challenges. And that restoration moves to optimization of human function. And Joegenics is a powerful tool of, once our health is optimized, to maintain it at the very highest levels, so that we can restore and optimize and maintain health over a lifespan. And I've been using phytochemicals with myself, my family, and with patients for well over now, and I can tell you, those that have consistently used phytochemicals in whatever form, their health has been amazing compared to those that haven't had the opportunity to use phytochemicals as a strategy for wellness. So through support of epigenetic control of gene expression, Joegenics will become a major player in the wellness industry for the future. And it is the first generation, after years of research. I'm now working with some of my mentors of going, what can we do for the future as we develop further technologies? How can we make Joegenics even more effective than it is today? So it's always going to be in a constant evolution. So that's kind of our introduction to the new product, Joegenics. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity for sharing what I really love to do, which is my passion for my personal health and helping each individual around the world create better health for themselves and for their families and for the people that they love. So again, thank you very, very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. Round of applause for Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe, you're always extremely, I love, because Dr. Joe always keeps things simple for people to understand, as simple as he could, right? So yeah, today we have we have people from 11, 12 different countries. So we have people who have asked some questions. So we've asked people who, the women to send their questions personally on the chat box to Yvonne Tay, and also for the men to Mr. Alan Thum. Okay, so what they'll do is they will then ask the questions to Dr. Joe for him to address. So this will be the general session of questions and answers. What's going to happen after this part is done, we are going to go into a breakout session, especially addressing to the medical professionals, the doctors, those who want to ask more detailed questions to Dr. Joe, more scientific stuff, which is probably not for the general public. But you guys are welcome to be observers for that event after the Q&A if you want to, all right? Just stay silent as observers. We never know. You could probably have talent to become the next doctor. Okay? So, like I said, this is more of an event to understand how the product works, what it does, why is it very, very different from anything that's ever been created, and why this is going to change the whole landscape of preventive medicine, right? So now I'll pass the next session, the Q&A session, to Mr. Alan Thum and also Yvonne Tay for the Q&A. All right, over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Lee. So myself and Yvonne Tay will be reading out questions. I have two questions for the time being. One is for people who takes Chinese medicine, how do they take Zogenex? Is there a clash?
So let me make sure I understand the questions. For people taking medication.
Chinese medication. Chinese medicine.
Which one?
They didn't mention which Chinese medicine.
Okay. Chinese medicine.
Yeah, Chinese medicine.
Well, Zogenex was designed, and I work with pharmacologists, and we knew the product is going to go into people literally all over the world. And a high number of people are taking pharmaceutical medicine, they're using other herbs, they're using other strategies for health. So we've designed Zogenex to be non-invasive or interfering with any known medications. However, because it is a dietary supplement, the rules now around the world are we can't make medical claims about the product. And we always say if a person is under medical care, share Zogenex with their health practitioners so that that practitioner can make a decision. Is there a conflict with any medications or any strategies that they're using for their personal health?
Okay. Hope that answered the question. Another question we have here is, are you familiar with the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza? If so, how have this influenced your work and especially the power of thought on gene expression?
Yeah, Dr. Bruce obviously is a world-leading scientist, and he was one of the radical first people, I believe, out of Stanford University to begin to really understand this cellular epigenetic impact that food and thought has on human gene expression. So Zogenex obviously had those kind of research concepts in mind when we developed this product, for sure.
Okay. Another question here is, can Zogenex help with special kids like Down syndrome or autism?
Well, again, those are medical conditions, and again, dietary supplements are not designed to treat or ameliorate any disease process. So, Joegenics, what we say, provides those raw materials, particularly in the form of phytochemicals, to support all the body systems. And here's what we know scientifically: the body heals itself from inside. And so, if we provide the right raw materials, anything is possible. And we've seen evidence of some strange and bizarre things happening, even in genetic disorders like Down syndrome, but we make no claims about that. It supports health, and the worst it can do is make an individual healthier.
Okay. Another question which relates to Chinese doctors. Okay, most of Chinese doctors will suggest not to take fruit. So I'm guessing it ties in with Chinese medicine, when you eat Chinese medicine and not to take fruits at the same time. Is that what you mean, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think I can probably help with that. There's in Chinese medicine, a lot of times food combinations will interfere. And that's why Joegenics is so exciting, because it's not the food itself. We've done incredible botanical extractions so that we can combine the molecules from fruit and vegetables without having the sugars and the major impacts of those carbohydrates interfering with proteins. So we've looked at those strategies, and this is very complementary with, again, with Chinese medicine, and not interfering with that concept because of the botanical extraction nature of Joegenics.
Yvonne, I pass it to you for some of the questions that you have. I still have some to compile here.
Okay. So one of the question is that I have recurring bronchitis cough, especially since I had tuberculosis in my lungs 8 years ago. Took very strong antibiotics for 6 months. How will Joegenics help my condition?
Well, again, Joegenics is going to be supportive. So anybody that's taking pharmaceutical-based medicine, again, should talk with their doctor, make sure that the doctor is in agreement with the strategy. This is food. These are food-based molecules. And except in some rare situation, there's no conflict between ingesting incredible quality phytochemical food in Joegenics and eating a meal. And so unless there's some allergy or some reason that a doctor would say, don't take this particular botanical, I don't see a problem at all. And we've not clinically seen any challenges using phytochemicals in transplants and in diabetics and in cancer treatment. Matter of fact, it's been shown to be extremely beneficial to support the body under most all health conditions.
Okay, thank you. Another question. One of the benefits is to decrease stress response. May I know if it will benefit those that suffers from mental health or depression?
Absolutely, because when the body's under stress, and it can be emotional stress, if it happens to be anxiety or depression, that changes the internal chemistry. Our very thoughts changes our DNA expression. And if our thoughts are negative for long enough, that becomes a pattern. And so Joegenics would be a tool that begins to change that gene expression from negative to a more optimistic, more positive thought process. And this is like what Dr. Bruce Lipton would be talking about in the mental epigenetic control of our genes.
Okay, thank you. And then another question, can babies and pregnant mothers and breastfeeding ladies take Zogenex?
Yeah, it's a dietary supplement, and according to the FDA in the US, in Europe, in Australia, and most other places in the world, dietary supplements are not recommended for pregnant and lactating women. And I've been dealing with that issue for 40 years. And here's what I always have talked about. These are food-based compounds. These are not synthetic vitamins and minerals, which is that's the big problem with pregnant and lactating women. They do not want synthetic compounds unless they're controlled by their pediatrician or their obstetrician going into the human body. So most practitioners that I talk with and educate, once they know Zogenex and other products that we've created are natural, they're from food, organic-based material, they usually say, well, then that's good for the human body and we can use more. But as a company, we can't recommend it as a tool for pregnant, lactating women or babies, just because of the legal ramifications that go along with dietary supplements. And what we usually say is that the woman has the control and the choice of what he or she feeds their children or their babies. And most mothers really benefit from phytochemicals through gestation, through delivery, through breastfeeding. We have seen it for decades. Always very, very beneficial to have a better diet for the mother. So it's always beneficial. As a company, we can't say we recommend it for children. Pregnant or lactating women.
Okay, thank you. Another question. So, will there be any interactions with those who are on medications like antiplatelet medications or those with heart problems?
Yeah, that's a great question because most botanicals tend to be a blood thinner naturally. That's kind of what they do in the systems. Again, when someone is under medication like that, their doctor needs to know, oh, I'm going to start taking Zogenex. And the doctor, if they're on antiplatelet medication, would probably say, oh, that is a natural blood thinner, so I've got to monitor your blood so that we can reduce the amount of pharmaceutical approach and increase a phytochemical approach to get balance. And I do this working with clinicians all the time, but we can't do that just recommending it. So again, it's a dietary supplement. If a person's being treated by a doctor, they need to communicate with that doctor that, hey, I'm taking this new Zogenex material. Here's what it is. Should I or should I not take that based on my medical treatment? Because we can't make that decision because I'm not the doctor's treating that patient.
Okay. One of my friends suffers from sleep apnea. Can Zogenex help?
Possibly. Sleep apnea can be a chemical imbalance that causes muscular change, or it can be, especially in America, obesity is a huge problem, and it's not going to help if there is a mechanical disturbance in the breathing apparatus because someone is overweight or obese. So we've got to look at each individual case, but again, it's only going to be supportive of that person's health, maybe helping the sinuses clear up and breathe easier, but it's not going to change any mechanical problems that would be caused by sleep apnea.
Okay. Another question. Friend has irregular heart rhythm, also mitral heart prolapse. Can Joe-Genics help?
Well, again, these are medical conditions, and the worst it can do is help. And there is a lot of scientific literature, a lot of research being done on the cardiovascular system and phytochemicals and how they regulate heart rhythms and how they regulate vascular dilation to control hypertension, situations like that. But again, we don't say, yes, this is good for a particular disease, because again, that's not what dietary supplements are designed to do. They are designed to go into the body and create better health, a better environment in the body so the biochemistry can work appropriately.
Okay. Okay, another question. So how about those who have kidney failure? Will this supplement help or aggravate the condition?
Well, again, this is another severe medical situation, and usually those patients are under dialysis, and that is where they're taking the blood out, cleaning the blood, and putting it back in, and they have to be very, very, very careful about what is going on with that particular patient. So, yes, I've worked with kidney doctors and patients on dialysis, but that's on a one-on-one basis. So each doctor needs to make that decision for their patient. We've seen great scientific evidence that it's very beneficial, but we can't recommend it. That is each individual doctor's recommendation based on their understanding of the scientific literature and the work of epigenetics and phytochemicals and how they interact with the body's DNA and gene expression and how it would benefit that patient. This is brand new science, so a lot of the doctors are not up to speed on that. So we still have to leave it to that doctor's discretion about what to do with their patient.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll pass it back to Alan to continue the questions from the gentleman while I compile the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to compile a few questions into one because they're the same, about the same.
Okay.
When is the best time? When's the best time to take? And how shall we take it?
Yeah.
Straight or with water? And how much maximum can we take in a day?
Yeah.
And anybody who should not take it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, with it, who should not take it? The people that should not take it are the ones that their doctors say, hey, don't take this because it could interfere with my medical treatment of your case. So that would be the people who should not take it. And so it's food and food-based. So anybody that needs food and needs quality food, this is a good strategy for them. Now, how and what is the best time to take Joe-Genics? What we found over the years in clinical work and in the laboratory scientific work, that phytochemicals on an empty stomach tend to be absorbed better, and they tend to be more effective quicker than if they are consumed with a large meal. So I usually tell people, try to take it on an empty stomach 30 minutes before a large meal. The ideal time, first thing in the morning, take a Joe-Genics packet and put it in the mouth. And if you like the taste in the mouth by itself, let it dissolve, move it around the oral cavity, and maybe spend 20-30 seconds in the mouth, because that's going to enhance its absorption. Now, second strategy, you could mix it in water, mix it in tea, make a tea out of it, either with water or hot or cold, and that's still a very good strategy. Again, best time on an empty stomach. If we're going to use it multiple times a day, still, first thing in the morning is great. Maybe an hour or two after a lunch meal or an hour or two after a dinner meal before bedtime is the ideal time to use Joegenics.
Okay. How Joegenics metabolism is correlated with beta B12 metabolism?
Ooh, say it again for me, okay?
How Joegenics metabolism is correlated with beta B12 metabolism.
With which one?
I believe it's vitamin B12.
Vitamin B12 metabolism. Well, here's the great news. Joegenics, and we don't put a quantity, but all of these botanicals that we use are extracted by teams of scientists that try to get the best effect of the phytochemistry. And these plants contain small amounts of B12, and the synergy of all of those molecules work together. So this Joegenics will work together with B12 metabolism so that we get the most value out of the absorption and utilization of all the vitamins, all the B vitamins, all of the water and fat-soluble vitamins. All of those are enhanced by Joegenics. And Joegenics contains every known vitamin, every known mineral in its composition.
Okay. There are many antioxidants-based products in the market. How different is Joegenics compared to the rest in terms of ORAC level?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because we've been studying phytochemistry and especially the antioxidant system, the redox system of the human body for decades. And here's what we first started out looking at ORAC as a laboratory test to see, is a product a good candidate for scavenging free radicals in the body? And that technology was good for a number of years until we realized, well, things that work in a test tube not necessarily work the same way in the human body. So here's the beauty of Joegenics. It was designed to provide the raw materials to signal into the DNA to turn on the body's natural antioxidant systems. Superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione, powerful enzyme systems that scavenge free radicals 1 billion times stronger than, say, vitamin C or vitamin E. And so the ORAC is now kind of an obsolete concept in the field of antioxidant research and the redox oxidation metabolism.
Okay. Can Joegenics be helpful to prevent hereditary genetic disorder? Example, diabetes.
Again, medical conditions, we just don't know. There hasn't been enough research. 500,000 research projects on phytochemicals, but only in the last 5 years have we looked at gene expression and how it's going to change. So we're very early in understanding that. So what we say is the jury is not in yet on how it's going to change a lot of things, but we know it's going to affect thousands of internal signaling systems into the DNA, into the nucleus of the cell, and that's going to change how genes are expressed, and if we learn more, and we're working every day in the laboratory with some of the most sophisticated equipment known to man, parts per trillion evaluation on these molecules, and we will have better answers for those types of questions. But right now, the answer is the worst it can do is do great work for gene expression, and we hope to know more and more specifically how it's going to work for the future. But right now, it's a strong, strong tool for and the latest technological advancement in wellness and gene expression technology.
Okay, can Zogenix be helpful in cerebral palsy patients? If yes, do we have any testimonies?
Yeah, we don't have any testimony. Again, Zogenix is brand new in the marketplace. And what was the condition again? Cerebral palsy?
Yes.
Cerebral palsy, yes. Again, a birth deformity, a lot of times from lack of blood supply to the brain and actual damage to the brain. And that is a degenerative or a brain disorder that a lot of times has very little capability of changing. However, clinically, we have seen patients with all kinds of neurodegenerative disease change with the introduction of a product like Zogenix into their system. It's too early. We don't have any testimonies. That's the beautiful thing I'm excited about, for countries all over the world starting to use Zogenix with thousands and thousands and thousands of data points coming and feeding back into us so that we know, this is how we can tweak it and even make it better.
Okay. One more question before I pass it back to Yvonne around. Maltodextin.
I don't know the word.
Type it out. Maltodextin.
I'm probably just not hearing it okay. Can we type it out?
Yes, I'll just type it out in the chat.
Maltodextrin. Okay,
Maltodextrin is known to spike blood glucose levels. Is it a concern for diabetic to take?
Yeah, and that could be true in high levels because maltodextrin is a sugar. It happens to have some biological value and some manufacturing value. So we use it in the manufacturing process, but it has biological value. There's not enough in here to do a spike for blood sugar. And we've tested, the glucose levels before and after a product like Zogenix. It usually stabilizes the blood sugar because of the phytochemicals in combination with the maltodextrin. We looked at that very scientifically as part of the formulation.
Okay. On my side here, there are a few other questions which are from doctors. I think we bring it to the doctor session later on. Okay, so now I pass it on to Yvonne if there's any general questions.
Okay, so I'll ask, how does Zogenix work with proteoglycan? How's the synergy between the two of them?
How does it work with?
Proteoglycan.
Proteoglycan. Well, proteoglycan works in the extracellular fluid, and again as a signal into the cell so the cell can begin to regulate itself. Now that regulation requires other things to happen. So if proteoglycan sends a signal and the signal requires vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals to complete the signal into the DNA for gene expression, it's not going to work as good. So Zogenix is a synergistic compound with just about anything we put in our bodies to make that compound work more effectively.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Another question. So there are many products in the market saying that they can work for DNA. So what is the biggest benefit that Jogenix can do but the others can't?
Well, I don't know about a lot of the other products, but here's what we know. Each plant species, and if you take something like a red grape has hundreds to thousands of phytochemicals, and they work in the human body in a spectrum. And that spectrum is incredible and it's very valuable. But what we found clinically, if we use a grape with a noni compound or a mangosteen compound and combine those, the synergism tends to work better. And Jogenix is a combination of scientifically studied 20 different species with thousands of interacting synergistic molecules. And we found clinically, the more that you can get of phytochemicals in your body, the better. It slows and stops and even reverses the aging process, which is the most complicated biochemical event in the human body. And we're finding Jogenix and these phytochemicals are the tools to really control aging, so our skin and our internal chemistry does not age as fast as normal.
Okay, so this brings to another question. Can Jogenix help to strengthen from within for women 40 plus years old to be pregnant, and does it delay menopause?
I would say yes in both of those conditions, and we know that because menopause in the Southeast Asian Chinese population occurs later and with far less problems than in the Western culture. So we know that's because of green tea and phytochemicals in the diet of the Southeast Asian Chinese people. And the longest living population on earth is the Japanese population. And it's because of the phytochemicals that are coming into their diet. The more they westernize the diet, the worse it gets. So for women, it is a great tool for supporting a normal menstrual cycle and delaying and making for an easier menopause experience. The transition from being reproductively possible to postmenopausal with nothing changing except you can't have babies anymore. And so the phytochemicals are a great tool for the female anatomy, just like the male anatomy.
Okay, that's great. How does Jogenix help with a body that is allergic to many food and environmental factors like dust?
Well, and that's one of the great tools is the environment is now toxic in the 21st century. There are 80,000 chemicals in our environment that were not there 100 years ago. So the human body has experienced great stress from an environmental impact. And what we know is Jogenix, phytochemicals, are a great tool for reducing that environmental stress on the human body. It helps regulate the systems that are changed from a poor diet and toxic exposure to our environment. And so I believe it's just a great tool to help the body have less allergic stress response and a better response overall to our environments that we're living in the 21st century. That's why we created Jogenix, for the problems that exist today that didn't exist 100 years ago.
Okay, one last question. So Jogenix is in a powder form, right? And ideally we should put it in our mouth to consume it directly. So why is it in a powder form instead of a juice for this product?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of you know that I've made some incredible juice products in the past. And those great products come with a great technological challenge because they are a liquid, and liquids are not always stable. As much as we try to do that, they still have inherent stability problems. So they usually have, once you open a liquid and expose it to air, it is now starting to decline in its phytochemical uh, concentration. They decline with age. Geogenics is in a dry powder form because it is not in this package exposed to air and literally has a shelf life of many, many, many years because it's in dry form. Once it's put into the mouth or made into a tea or drank with water, it's now activated and it's now in a fresh phytochemical delivery system to the human body, just like those plants were when we processed them from the field, however long ago. So this is a fresh product each and every time we take it, regardless of if it's 1 month old or 2 months old. The only thing is, once it's exposed to air, it should be used immediately. And that's why it's packaged the way that it is.
Oh, so if it's in a gel form is also considered liquid, right? That's another question. If it's a gel form, it's considered liquid as well.
It's the same as a liquid. Yeah, it's the same. It's again a liquid exposed to those phytochemicals and those dry powder botanicals, and they're going to degrade with time. So this is what I feel like is the best technology for me to take so that I have a fresh product each and every time. And I love my liquid products, but I don't use those anymore because we found a better, more effective way, not only for me, but for the people that I love, my family, and the patients that I work with, and the people we share the product with. So this is the best delivery system that we know of right now. Simple and easy, and it's very, very effective.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. So I think we'll end the general session first. I'll pass it back to Remy.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for all your questions. And, thank you so much, Dr. Joe, for doing your best to entertain everyone's questions. It's not easy, I know. I mean, we have people from Hong Kong, Macau, Malaysia, US, Singapore, Thailand, Australia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Africa, Vietnam. We have 11 countries right now in here. So we also have doctors, mainly, if I'm not mistaken, from India, Malaysia. So these are specialists, health practitioners, doctors who may have more technical questions, and we want to reserve this next session especially for them. In fact, this is why we organized this call. Okay, so this next session, we will allow them to ask directly to Dr. Joe. Of course, some of it has been compiled in the chat, but for those of you who you can later once we're done with the questions that are on the chat, you can actually unmute yourself if you are one of the professional doctors or health practitioners. Right now, for the rest of you, if you feel that this next part may be too much information for you, don't worry, you don't have to stay. Okay, I know in some parts of the world it's getting really late, or some of you need to go to work. You are welcome to stick around, no problem. You can actually stay on as observers, no problem. And if you guys need to go, so much for being on the call. I know a lot of you are waiting for, some of you are waiting for the products to actually come into your countries. For those who are keen to find out how they can actually bring Dr. Joe's Geogenics to their respective countries, how you want to contact us to make sure that we get it to where you are. please, we'll have another session for that one. Don't worry about that one. Okay, that will not be addressed here today. Please contact the one person who actually gave you this link to this meeting to find out more or how we can get products to you and to your loved ones. Okay, now to the next session is the more detailed doctor session. Okay, guys, so I will hand it over to Alan Tam to kick it off for the compilation of the ones on the chat, the questions from the chat. All right, to you, Alan. You're muted. You're muted. Uh-oh, Alan's crashed. Are you okay? Okay,
yes,
Alan's there. You're there.
My Zoom has just crashed. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Alan,
Yes, we can hear you. We can
you're
hear you.
muted.
We can hear you, Alan. Uh-oh, your Zoom has crashed. Is it?
My Zoom has just crashed.
Okay.
We can hear you though.
We can hear you and we can see you.
Let me try to read out the questions while it's still connected. Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can.
Okay. Is there any stability data? If yes, how long time period is stable? In which condition is more stable or unstable? I don't really understand this question.
So let me make sure I understand the question. Are we talking about the stability of Jogenix?
Yeah. I believe so.
Is that
Because
correct?
it-
Well,
Yeah,
I think I I just answered that for Yvonne in terms of stability. These dry powders, once we do the botanical extraction from the raw material, once it's in this dry powder form, it's extremely stable for years. And we've done stability test for over a decade of product still tested biologically active in dry powder form. So this right now represents the most stable form that we can keep it in and also deliver it to the consumer. So they simply tear it open and put it in their mouth or make it into a beverage and consume it, and it's in its freshest state, just like the raw material that we extracted it from, that could be a month old or it could be as far as a year or two ago we did the extraction. It's still very stable in this form.
Okay. What are the main ingredients of Jogenix which brings such great results?
Well, it's really the combination, because there is a concept that I've been working on and been educating about for decades called nutrient synergy. How if A is good and B is good, the combination of A and B is not equal to 2 times their benefit. It could be 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, because of the synergistic combination of those molecular structures. So that's the magic of Jogenix, is combining all of these botanical molecular combinations together. And we're now, we've got a laboratory not far from where I live here in Texas at the university, where we're able to study parts per trillion and beginning to look at the interactions of these and how that synergy is really playing out in the gene expression. We can actually see those kind of things because technology has advanced that far. And we're very excited about continuing on with that research for discovery.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all for the questions that was asked earlier on. So I believe now you're going to hand over to the next moderator for the doctor's session. So Gobi, I'll hand it over to you and Yusuf for specifically on the doctor session. Over to you, Gobi.
Okay, thank you everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Yes, very
Wonderful. So thank you, Alan, and the rest, and also particularly to Dr. Joe for the great session, and also more importantly the great answers to the questions raised by the participants. So now we will have exclusive session for the doctors. I believe a lot of doctors have also joined these sessions today. They are eager to ask questions as to probably something that some of us will not be able to answer, but Dr. Joe would be able to do so. So if we could just have doctors come forward and ask these questions one at a time, that would be great. You can unmute your mic and also ask your questions to Dr. Joe directly. Keep it short and simple so that, and also we can speak slowly so that Dr. Joe will be able to understand this question and able to address these questions or answers back to you. So any doctors who wants to come forward?
I hope we've answered all the questions already, but maybe not.
There are a lot of specific questions raised by some of the doctors as well during the session earlier.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the doctor questions on the chat when I was looking there, and so I know a lot of the questions have been asked, and we'll be glad to try to entertain anything that we can, and if we can't answer it, we'll get an answer to it with myself or with my colleagues for the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have two doctors still here. Dr. Devesh, would you like to ask a question? Dr. Devesh Nagar. Dr. Mohinder.
I have already asked the question.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Devesh, hopefully you are satisfied with the answer given.
Yeah, I got the answer. Thank you very much, Dr. Joe. I'm so great hearing from you. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr.
And Dr.
You're very,
Mohinder.
very welcome.
Dr. Mohinder there. Dr. Mohinder.
I just saw a question pop up on the screen. It was about has there been any work done on Zoogenics and SNPs? And SNPs are single nucleotide polymorphisms, and those are things, single changes in the nucleotide of a gene, and we haven't done those studies. Those studies can be done, and like I said, we've got a university here that's very interested in pioneering and doing some of that research, but we haven't done that particularly on Zoogenics, because what we're looking at, instead of a single nucleotide polymorphism, how that entire gene switches on, switches off. And that's kind of the critical issue, particularly in something like an oncogene, a gene that, if it's turned on, promotes cancer, or a tumor suppressor gene that, if it's turned on, suppresses cancer. And those are things that are looked at with the ingredients in the scientific literature, and why we've selected some of the ingredients, because we know scientifically that they are acting as gene switches for some very, very, very important genes that impact our health and serious health challenges.
We have Dr. Janak here, who has done research in the stem cell technology. Dr. Janak, you would like to ask some questions? Dr. Janak? Dr. Janak?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
Dr. Janak, please go ahead.
Yes. Nice to meet you, doctor.
Presently, I don't have any question. I had a question regarding vitamin B12 metabolism, how it is connected with Joe Janak. So it is already solved. I have nothing to ask now.
Wow. I'm sorry, the microphone it's getting a little bit of an echo, so I'm not hearing the question.
Yeah, I'm in low network area. So I don't have any question. I had a question which I asked you regarding vitamin B12.
Yeah, that's the question I asked earlier on regarding the metabolism of vitamin B12.
Yeah, that was the question.
So that question has been answered by you, Dr. Joe. So I think
that is okay.
I already answered the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Somebody said another question, if you don't mind. Phytonutrients on bloating. Okay. Is that one we want to answer on the bloating?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, this is a huge problem where I live in America. Gastrointestinal problems are a huge problem in America. One of our biggest selling over-the-counter and pharmaceutical medicines has to do with GERD and intestinal problems of all types. And so what we're seeing in the scientific literature is that these phytochemicals go into the body and they're either absorbed so that they can be used in the metabolism, or they go further down into the colon, and under microbial action, they are used by our gut microbiota and create secondary metabolites that are absorbed, and they tend to have a balancing effect on the microflora, so it tends to balance the gut bacteria, and it helps with that after food intake, bloating, and indigestion. So phytochemicals have a big role in that. Clinically, we generally want to put phytochemicals into the diet that has a tendency to acidify the colon itself, make the colon more acidic. And some of the ingredients in here tend to do that. So it's going to have a very positive effect on bloating and what we call in America heartburn, that gastrointestinal GERD phenomena. So can have a very positive benefit on bloating post-food intake.
Yes, also an additional question to that earlier question posted. Its influence on autoimmunity.
Autoimmunity? Yeah, a very big challenge. Particularly in the Western world, we've got an explosion of autoimmune diseases, and we don't know why the body changes from recognizing itself to attacking itself. One of the reasons that or one of the solutions to that in the scientific literature is that things like lupus, things like multiple sclerosis, things like rheumatoid arthritis, where the body's attacking itself, with the inclusion of phytochemicals, the signal tends to change from body not recognizing itself in certain tissues to better recognition, so the body symptoms begin to change. And we've seen this in conditions, particularly in lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. Those autoimmune diseases in the scientific literature have very good, strong evidence that they're benefited by phytochemical introduction. And a lot of those phytochemicals are included in Joe Janak.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. So that also answers the question raised by Anne on lupus patients. So do you have any more question on that? If you don't, if you do, then just drop a message to me. Because the other question, Dr. Joe, is how does Joe Janak help Alzheimer's disease?
help
Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's?
Yes.
Yes. A neurodegenerative disease of exploding proportions around the world. And they're finding, and we saw this clinically a decade ago before we ever understood about geogenics or epigenetics, that the introduction of a good plant-based diet changed how fast the Alzheimer's patient declined. And so some of the most exciting research right now is on phytochemical intervention in neurodegenerative disease of all types. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS, it's called Lou Gehrig's disease here in the Western world, all neurodegenerative diseases. And what they're finding is phytochemicals are a very powerful tool to slow and hopefully stop that degeneration and decline. And we're even seeing some reversal in those patients with the introduction of phytochemicals.
Thanks, doctor. And adding to that answer, does it also help patients with or people with sinus and season allergy?
Absolutely true. I can say yes, because clinically, for decades, I've used phytochemicals for those patients that just were not responsive, particularly the seasonal allergies. I actually had them myself for a period of a number of years, and when I got certain phytochemicals in my system, I have not had seasonal allergies in a decade or two now. So I know personally, and with a lot of patients, that phytochemical introduction can be a tremendous tool for that environmental stress of allergy response.
All right. Okay. This question probably related to maybe a bit more religion sensitive, because some of the one of the content in your geogenic ingredient states tequila syrup. Is that anyway related to alcohol? I mean, is it just a question raised by some of the Muslim folks?
Well, there are sugar alcohols that are not an alcohol like an ethanol that you would drink for recreational purposes. So it's a compound that you would find naturally occurring in a fruit or a vegetable, and not a ingredient that we've applied from like an alcohol ethanol based compound at all. So it's not only kosher, but halal.
Yes. So for those Muslim folks here, at least in Malaysia, it's halal certified as well. That's why we are able to sell here in Malaysia, and probably most part of the world. Okay, thanks, doctor. Next question. Lots of these phytochemicals are told to boost immunity. Has it been proven clinically, or do we have studies in PubMed, published in PubMed?
Yeah, not with no geogenics itself, because again, it's new, and research is very expensive, in the millions of dollars to do that. But if you go to what we have here in the Western world, by the National Institute of Health here in America, is the world's largest biochemical database called PubMed, PubMed. And if you go to PubMed and put in phytochemicals and immunity, you'll see hundreds to thousands of research products about the phytochemicals and how they impact immunity. And guess what? Right now, immunity is a popular concept because of COVID-19, because people with high immunity don't have expression of COVID in their systems. They get it, and they can be asymptomatic. Up to 50% of the population are already immune to COVID because of their dietary intake and their lifestyle management. So yeah, it's a very, very, very important tool for immunity.
Okay. More questions. I'll probably put this all in one because I suppose your answer to these questions will answer everything. Okay, let's try. So the question is, can it enhance vision quality, aging problems such as arthritis and joint pains, asthma and eczema?
Yeah, so the answer is absolutely yes. It's the kind of tool that I've recommended. I started my first wellness practice in 1985, so that's 35 years ago, and we saw phytochemicals, especially in athletes that had joint pain from athletic activity, and an older population that had coming on arthritis and aches and pains in the joints, tremendously supported by things that are in Joegenics. Vision. We have seen people go from wearing glasses, not myself particularly, but I've seen patients that literally their vision went back to 20/20 or normal again with a change in diet impacted by phytochemicals in their diet. So again, as a wellness tool, all of those aging problems that we get, wrinkling of the skin getting older looking, all of those factors are impacted very positively by the phytochemicals that are contained in Joegenics. So it's a tremendous tool. I'm an anti-aging doctor. I was board certified in that field in the year 2000, and I think this is far more powerful and far more impactful than hormone regulation pharmaceutically and injectable growth hormone strategies. This is a more powerful tool, according to Harvard Medical School and Dr. David Sinclair, that's doing work incredibly on aging.
Well, great. Okay, next question is not medical related, it's more holistic, and that has to do with the following. Does it help with men with midlife crisis and performance?
Well, I'm going to say absolutely yes, because midlife crisis is kind of a mental state, because a man is beginning to think my days are over with, and I better do all I can while I can. But what we know, again, in the scientific literature, PubMed, if you look at phytochemicals and anabolic response, it's a tremendous hormone regulator. And one of my mentors, and we worked together for years on signaling from the hypothalamus to the pituitary so that the body would secrete more human growth hormone. And guess what? It was phytochemicals that control that mechanism, and we've incorporated that understanding and technology in Joegenics so that young men, middle-aged men, and old guys like me can have performance and less crisis in our mind as we age.
Thank you, doctor. So all that men out there, you have more confidence now, yeah?
Yeah, amen.
Okay. Okay, I'll also open up to doctors. And the doctors have been very quiet, some of the doctors over here. Dr. Mohinder, do you have any question? You may want to ask some question too, and all the other doctors, especially from India. It was so difficult to get Dr. Joe on board because I think it took us almost a month just to book his slot and agree to a slot today. And thanks to his dedication towards this epigenetic area, and also our friendship with Remy and Kaneko-san, we were able to get him on board and talk to us. So
and here's what we're willing. Yeah. Here's what we're willing to do. Also, if we want to just have a special doctors only call and discussion, I'll be glad to do that, because again, my goal is to help educate as many people as possible. So we can get with Ramey and Kaneko and we can make that happen. If we get 10 or more doctors together and we want to do that, I'd be glad to do it so that we can record it and it can become a training tool for all of us.
Awesome.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you.
This is a personal question I have. Since we all know that Thanks Eyes, a lot of the products has got the JAPA certification. Is there any chance that Joe Gen X would be going to get the JAPA certification as well, or the JAPA recommendation? The JAPA recommendation.
What kind of recommendations?
JAPA, Japanese Association of Preventive Medicine for Adult Diseases.
Well, a recommendation for Joegenics?
Yeah, I mean the JAPA certification, like for profile, they have it, and mineral eye, they have it.
Well, yeah, that's all kind of a regulatory government function, and I know Thanks Eye, they do that side of the work with each country and each location, and so we provide them all the scientific data, but still there's government bureaucracy, and some of those things take longer than others. But I believe that this product will pass all government requirements, but there's always a misunderstanding about some ingredient and what it is, and is it a drug or not a drug. So the answer is probably yes, it's going to pass everything, but it may not yet, and it may take some time. And thank goodness I don't have to do that.
Okay, next question, Dr. Joe. Will Joe Gen X contradict with the following medications? Diamicron for diabetic patients, Plendil for blood pressure, and Crestor for cholesterol.
I can't hear that one.
Okay.
But
let me repeat that question again.
Let's just talk in terms of pharmaceutical medicine in general.
Yeah, go ahead, doctor.
Okay, in pharmaceutical medicine in general, because this is a dietary supplement, the world regulatory bodies say we cannot make any claims, or this is a treatment for any disease, and if a person is being treated by a doctor, that doctor and that patient, that is a sacred relationship, and we cannot interfere with that. So if we recommend this to a patient on any drug, the world says consult with that doctor that's prescribing that drug and let them make that decision. That's the law of the world now. So we know from a pharmacological standpoint that this is not going to interfere with just about every known drug, including chemotherapy drugs. Matter of fact, in the U.S., we're using phytochemicals in conjunction with chemotherapy. So we know it's very safe, but still the law is each doctor has to make that decision for their patient. So I want to be very clear, we're not making any recommendations, and we don't know the specifics of that doctor-patient relationship and why that drug was prescribed. So that's why we legally have to say, consult with your doctor if you're going to use this under their care.
I hope that answers. Next question, more specific, how will it help the liver?
Yeah, that's a great question, because liver function obviously is a critical issue. I can tell you that most of the botanicals, if we go to PubMed, phytochemicals and liver function, thousands of research projects have been done, and primarily we're looking at balancing the liver enzyme systems. particularly the detoxification systems of the liver, so that they can detoxify toxic chemicals that are in the body. It assists removing those. It also helps balance the hormonal chemistry and the biochemistry of the liver itself. That's one of the beautiful parts of phytochemistry, that it really, really works well on liver function. And we found in cancer research that a person with cancer automatically has abnormal liver function. So liver function and cancer go together, and phytochemicals are a tremendous tool in that balancing liver physiology across the board. It's very, very important, and it's a tremendous tool.
Okay. Since Joe Gen X has guanara, does it not interfere with sleep at night?
Again, it's a synergistic compound in there to help stimulate the ATP system of the body, but there's not enough in there unless somebody happens to be sensitive individually to that compound that is going to interfere with sleep. Matter of fact, I actually sleep better using this an hour before bedtime. It just tends to get the brain chemistry balanced, tends to put me in REM sleep deeper, keeping me there longer, personally. And each individual is going to react differently because of our biochemical individuality. But across the board, it tends to be a sleep aid as opposed to a sleep interfering compound. Your microphone went off, maybe.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How does it help with bowel movements?
Again, it's going to be balancing the GI tract, especially the colon. And if you get the balance of the microbiology of the colon right, which phytochemicals tends to do, it's going to tend to deal with periods of loose stool, diarrhea, or constipation. It's going to tend to balance. So it should be a tool and an aid in that lower digestive tract.
Great. Okay, this is specifically for eyesight, especially for those. How does phytochemicals help to rectify astigmatism and myopia?
Yeah, we don't really know because, again, there are other factors. I wish I could tell you that 40 years of ingesting phytochemicals have made my eye where I don't need to wear glasses, but that's not true. My eyesight has slowly, very slowly changed. These are the same glasses I've used for the last 4 years. My eyesight, even at advanced age where I am, is slowing, but it has not changed it back to normal. And astigmatism is another mechanical problem with either the musculature or the shape of the eyeball itself. And we haven't seen a lot of work and research or validation that phytochemicals, they certainly have done no harm. And we've seen anecdotal evidence that it's helpful, but there's not a lot of clinical scientific research on that area. Love to see more of it done.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not sure whether this is a statement or if it's a question. Probably it's good to address it since you are here, Dr. Joe.
Okay.
Is it suitable for vegetarians?
Absolutely. Everything in here is 100% vegan. No animal-based products whatsoever. So absolutely true. And we had that in mind because we had a large population of very strict vegetarians in Taiwan that this product was going to be really exciting for them.
Great, thanks. So that clears the scene for vegetarians and vegans in particular, especially those folks from India.
Yes.
All right, I've exhausted all questions so far. Unless if you have any questions, doctors especially, even anyone else can raise questions too. So Dr. Mohinder,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Janaka, please feel free.
Good evening, Dr. Joe. Hello.
Yeah, we
Hello.
can hear you, Dr. Mohinder.
Yeah. You had covered all the things, but the main ingredients in Jogenex. So any doctor who has to decide the medicine adjuvant to this, how he can decide if he is not knowing the ingredients of this product?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble. It's breaking up a little bit. Maybe could we?
Can I?
Is there any way we could
Can
type
I-
the question?
Can I rephrase it for Dr. Mohinder? Can I
Yes,
rephrase
please,
it?
Ajay. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
What Dr. Mahendra means to say is, how can the doctor recommend to his patients if he doesn't know what is the ingredient of Jogenex?
Oh, well, the ingredients should be listed on the package. We've got 23 different botanicals in that product, and by law, we've got to disclose on the package what those ingredients are. Now, we don't disclose our proprietary combination or quantities of each ingredient because that's our scientific secret. But each botanical is listed on the package, not on the small one, but on the package and in the literature with the product itself.
Yeah, and for those who have not got their hands on Jogenex, there's also information on Thanks Eye's website, which then highlights all the breakdowns of ingredients
I think
too,
maybe
as what Dr. Joe has mentioned.
Yeah, Gobi, I think maybe what we receive in India is all Japanese. Yeah, that's why he's not able to read it.
Right. Okay, no worries. We have. I can send you the NFR.
Thank you.
Website that states in English.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Sorry
thanks.
for that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Has there been any studies on how phytochemicals benefits people with mild glaucoma, where they are still borderline?
Yeah,
Where they can actually improve
there's been a lot of work on glaucoma, the pressure problems with the eyeball itself, and phytochemicals have been a tremendous tool. Here in the U.S., there's been a lot of work on the phytochemistry and control of glaucoma because that's one of the leading causes in older people, blindness. And so a lot of that work is being done, and not just one phytochemical, but dozens to hundreds are now being studied in combination for eye diseases of all kinds. It's very exciting work going on.
And specifically for Jogenex, any of the compounds inside Jogenex actually?
Yeah, more of the compounds, and that's again, we study the scientific literature, which compounds are beneficial for what conditions, and then we find the best suppliers, best extractors for that raw material, and then formulate it into a product like Jogenex. Yes. So again, the goal is to try to get as much phytochemistry to cover every physiological process that would impact health in the human body. And we can't do it all, but this is again our latest version of a great product to impact health.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Okay, so I've also quickly took all the ingredients from the Thanks Eye website and posted in the chat box, so take a look at it too.
Oh wow, thank you.
These are all the ingredients. So Dr. Joe, you can correct me because I just copied and pasted here. So you can take a look at it. You can also find information at the given link in the chat box. So please feel free to get in and take a look at it. Yeah. So any more questions?
Hello.
Dr. Joe.
Hello.
Hi, Farida.
Yeah, I couldn't type out, but I remember Dr. Joe mentioned the word redox. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, the redox system is the balancing between oxidation and reduction. And our bodies create free radicals for health reasons. particularly in the immune system, where the immune cells go out and attack a virus or a bacteria. We do that through an oxidative burst. And then we also have a reducing system so that that oxidation doesn't damage normal cells. And that's called the redox system. And it's simply called the antioxidant system or free radical system of the body.
Okay. Okay, next question. Does it help with body aches and pain? It's a very general question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the strong things about geogenics and phytochemicals. They have the ability to, particularly in the aging body, where you get joint aches and pains in the fingers, the wrist, the elbow, all over the body. And that can come from excess exercise or just the process of aging. Phytochemicals are very important for the control of that pain syndrome. So it's a tremendous pain management tool, and it actually helps those areas of the body heal, restore, and optimize their function so where they don't have pain anymore. That's the goal of geogenics.
Okay. Can geogenics help fasten wound recovery after a surgery, especially among vegetarians, as they can't consume animal-based products like protoglycan?
Yeah, yes, it's a great tool for a lot of work has been done on phytochemicals and wound healing, particularly post-surgical wound healing. And I saw it in the field, I worked in the field of plastic surgery, where plastic surgery patients with phytochemicals were healing at a much higher, faster rate than the patients that were not consuming a good diet.
Okay. Does it assist in hormonal imbalance?
Yes, phytochemicals and hormones are very important, and it starts in the hypothalamus of the brain, controlling the pituitary, and then the thyroid, the adrenal function. All of those hormonal systems are controlled and regulated and supported by the intake of phytochemicals.
Great. Okay, there's a question here. Does it help with nerve pain?
Nerve pain. Yeah, neuropathy and nerve pain is a very difficult pain management syndrome. There's been some work on phytochemicals and neuropathy, and the work is very promising, but it's very early. Again, we're looking at that epigenetic control of a degenerative condition of the nerve, and that's in its early signs, but there's some very promising reports on neuropathy and nerve pain and the introduction of things like the phytochemicals in geogenics. So I suspect the more that we see it utilized in the human population, a lot of people are going to take it, and they're going to realize, wow, my nerve pains are better, and we'll get more reports of that. So that's one of the exciting things for me, is to see the reports that we get back anecdotally, so then we can direct more research in a targeted area.
Yeah, okay. So can it also improve autism patients' recovery?
Did you say autism?
Autism, yes.
Yeah. We've seen some very interesting anecdotal reports on phytochemicals and their impact on children, especially with autism, and children with ADHD and attention deficits of all types. When we improve their diets, especially with phytochemicals, they tend to function better. And hopefully, as we progress with the research, we'll learn how to target these phytochemicals to a particular spectrum of disease like autism. That's a very exciting, promising thing, because that's an exploding problem globally now.
Okay, wonderful. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Oh yeah, more questions are coming in. Okay. Is there a particular paper you would recommend as a good introduction to phytochemicals and phytonutrients?
Boy, there's a lot. If you can give me maybe a little bit of time, I will list of maybe the top 10 research articles that gives a great overall introduction to that, and I'll make that available in the next few days if you'll give me some time to do that, and maybe have Rami or Kaneko-san be sure to text me to remember to do that, because I've got a lot of things going on, but I can do that one pretty quickly.
Sure. So Timothy, if you're on the call right now, I believe you are, so please refer to the person that introduced you to this today. So we will then get the answers to you.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, just give me a second, it's just too many. Okay, with a look in the ingredients, does Gen X consider a product with all known antioxidants to date that support body system?
Yeah, Jogenix is not an antioxidant product per se, because, and here's the exciting thing that we've discovered. An antioxidant is a molecule that extinguishes a free radical on a one-to-one basis. And that means if we've got billions of free radicals in our body, for instance, one puff of a cigarette, 500,000 free radicals in the body, one puff of a cigarette. So you would have to take 500,000 antioxidant molecules to quench that. And that was our knowledge for a long time. But here's what phytochemicals do. They come in, they hit the cell membrane, and they transmit a signal to the nucleus, to the DNA, to turn on antioxidant enzyme systems. Superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione. And those systems control antioxidants for one input on the cell membrane, a billion outputs. So it's a billion times more powerful than just a antioxidant. So this is the latest technology and understanding of that epigenetic control of gene expression for upregulating our body's antioxidant systems. So it's not a ORAC antioxidant value that's important, but how that system is turned on so that it can exponentially control free radical damage into the body. And that's so exciting compared to where we were 15 years ago in our understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question which I'm going to compress that into one question. So it goes from the head, stomach, and below. That is, does it help with migraine, stomach bloatness, and hernia?
I'm gonna say hernia is generally a more mechanical problem. Maybe a tearing of the tissue, allowing either the intestines to push out, or a hiatal hernia between the stomach and the esophagus challenge. Those are usually mechanical, and that requires healing, and phytochemicals tend to help the healing process, but unless you fix the mechanical side of it, it's not going to be super effective. Now with migraines, whether it's a vasodilation or a vasocontraction, phytochemicals tend to be a modulator of function. So if there are two different types of migraines, the same phytochemistry would tend to balance either one, because it's a regulatory, phytochemicals are regulatory molecules. They bring the body back into a condition called homeostasis, balance, yin and yang, bringing things back into balance. When balance is in the system, health is the predominant benefit. And so that's what we're looking for, is massive homeostatic balance with a product like this.
Okay. As another question, in comparison to caffeine, how much effective is it in terms of energy?
Well, it's extremely effective and probably more because caffeine by itself, particularly synthetic caffeine, is a powerful stimulator and it can be very negative. We've actually had people die of caffeine intake in energy drinks. So our approach to energy is balancing the internal energy systems so that we predominantly create more ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the molecule that's created in the mitochondria of the cell, so that the body has adequate energy for healing, repair, defense, regulation, regeneration. All of those systems require energy, and Joegenics was designed to provide the proper amounts of not only a little bit of caffeine, but the phytochemistry that helps balance that energy production system.
Okay, now specific to your product, Dr. Joe, what is the maximum number of packets of Joegenics that one can consume per day?
Well, there is no real maximum. However, because this is grams of material and billions and billions and billions of molecules, I think 3 times a day with a person with a health challenge is that's a lot. Could we do more? I say if you can afford more, according to the National Institute of Health and the research on aging, you can't get enough phytochemicals in your diet. So that's why they're recommending in America, eat at least 13 different fruits and vegetables each and every day. Why? Because it supplies all the phytochemicals that we're trying to supply here. So I think for maintenance, 1 a day is good. For optimal health, you may use more. For restoring health, you may need to use, multiple times a day, up to 3 to even 5 a day. And we don't know because we haven't done that kind of clinical work because it's food. And we know, you just generally don't eat too much food in 1 day. So I would say 3 ought to be our upper level, and like 5 the maximum level. But we'll know more a year from now, and I may have a different statement then. But right now, that's kind of where we are. Anywhere from 1 to 5 a day is kind of a minimum maximum range.
Okay, great. So we have 5 more minutes, folks. So please use this time effectively. Any more questions?
Hello. Can we say it's best, you can combine well with Profil and Joegenics?
Combine it with what compound?
Profil.
Profil.
Profil and...
Oh, yes. Not a problem. It's very synergistic with most things that are good for the body. Joegenics is going to support whatever that material is and actually help it absorb better and metabolize better and function better in the human body. That's kind of the beauty of Joegenics.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Can I ask a question? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Doreen.
Can we summarize to say that actually Joegenics is a phytonutrient rich supplement? Because when people talk about gene expression, helping gene expression, maybe they are expecting that it is a bombastic new age, new cutting, new technology product, or can we just say it's just phytonutrients in general?
Yes.
Is that oversimplifying?
Yeah, in simplistic terms, this is a product based on decades of research in phytochemistry And now what we've discovered is that phytochemistry has a tremendous impact on gene expression through epigenetic control. That's kind of what Joegenics is, but it's a phytochemical based product for sure, very specially designed to help with gene expression.
There were frightening reports or maybe rumors that some of the supplements that help with DNA or with genes actually altered the genes, which meant that the genes of the people were altered to be less human, to be slightly different. So would Joegenics have that kind of danger?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work in gene research where they're actually manipulating and controlling genes from an engineering standpoint. That is all experimental, high-tech medicine, okay? I'm not a real fan of that. Here's what Joegenics does. It's part of that control of the genome without changing DNA sequences. So it's a natural approach to gene expression as opposed to genetic engineering, which is somewhat dangerous. And personally, I don't like the idea of genetic manipulation because that's playing God. And I'm not a fan of that.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Yes. Great ending question.
Thank you, Doreen. Good question. All right. So I think we will I'll hand over back to the moderator, Remy. So let him do the concluding remark. Thank you, Dr. Joe, again, and thank you to all the doctors and medical folks to ask these great questions today. I'll hand over back to Remy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sri Gopi. And thank you so much to all the doctors around the world, who post all the questions, and also the rest of you for actually being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe, for addressing every one of them with a lot of care and with as much explanation as possible. It's not easy to be able to address all the different kinds of questions. Yeah, and of course, with Dr. Joe's extensive experience and his expertise, all of us, I'm sure, we want to have more of these product explanations and stuff like that, because everybody just wants to know. This is something really, really new, so naturally there will always be more and more questions, right? So we definitely want Dr. Joe again in the future. Dr. Joe, we love you. Thank you so much for this gift, of course, for all of us around the world. We're very, very excited. A lot of people are asking, how they can get it to their countries, because in some countries it's not yet available, right? But you can get it delivered, guys. For those of you who want it to be delivered to you, you can. But, in countries that we do not yet have a local office, there might be some duties and stuff like that which need to be sorted out, delivery charges. So please find out from the person who actually guided you to this call. They will be able to explain to you a lot more about how you can get your hands on Joegenics. Okay, and you need to do that. Of course, we're very excited because since this is really, really new, a lot of people are also asking about what are the ways they can partner up with us in terms of getting this distributed in their countries. So we'll have another call about that. If some of you want to know more about that, please find out from the person who shared the link with you, so that we can get on that particular call on how we could partner up in terms of getting this marketed in your respective countries around the world. We're excited, of course, for it to be everywhere, we're like I said, thank you so much again, everybody, for being on this call. It was more than a 2-hour call today. And we had a total of maximum 169 people on the call. That's amazing. And we still have 100 over people right now on the call who's very eager to stay on to listen to what doctors have to ask and how Dr. Joe addressed them.
Wow.
And guys, once again, and of course, Kaneko-san, the man who actually introduced Dr. Joe to Thanks I, and Thanks I actually funded his whole research, to this whole level right now. Mr. Kaneko, Nobuhiro Kaneko, right now is on the call. We're very, very thankful to him for starting this up almost 3 years over ago, and it took that long to get this day possible. So thank you so much, Kaneko-san. We really appreciate you. And once again, Dr. Joe, no words can express our gratitude to you for putting all your efforts and all your knowledge, to bringing this difference in humankind. Let's hope that we keep on doing this and blessing the world. Guys, thank you so much for being on the call.